Hello, my wonderful congregation. Today is a special sermon, special little event going on. And I'm sure by the title you could guess it by now. But it is Mary Shelley's birthday today, so I wanted to have a little special event in her memory and in her honor. Talk a little bit about her life, and then get into probably read a little bit from Frankenstein. And I was actually thinking, I don't know if anyone is interested, but I figured, what if I do away with Wednesdays and instead do either probably Sundays, where I read some horror books or gothic literature, with this cozy atmosphere, because I did want more variety in the channel. so far it's just been gaming, and I kind of want to switch it up. So let me know what you think, and yeah, I guess we'll see how this video does, especially on YouTube. Do get quite a bit of views on there. We climbed up to 6 subscribers, so I am so happy about that. Yeah, so hopefully this does well on there. And I mean, without further ado, before I get into that, I would like to ask for some help in terms of reporting these Instagram pages, because I was up late last night, just doom scrolling like always, and I came across these pages, these profiles, that at first the video that I came upon on the explore page were innocent enough, I think. So I clicked on it because it was about monkeys, and I was like, oh sweet, I love monkeys, so I want to check it out. But the more you scroll, the more you realize that they're abusing these animals. So I'll show you the page. This one is I don't know if you can see, it's Monkey BIBI 168. I didn't just report the account, I reported a lot of their posts, the ones that were very clearly showing abuse. And so far I got a notification from, I think, one of the posts that I reported, and Instagram said that they found no evidence of animal abuse, which is very sad. I also saved the videos, but I don't really want to show them because they're disturbing. Like, and I guess if you were completely, like, I don't know, disassociated, or were giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe you could make an excuse as to why they're showing this content. But trigger warning, if anybody does not want to hear what I saw, and I won't go into too much detail, but I know for some people it can be like really triggering, so I just want to give that warning. But a lot of the videos showed this little baby monkey. I don't remember what specific species it is, but it's like a small little monkey, kind of like the ones they showed in the picture. The ones I showed, they show him falling off very high counters, screaming after he falls. Other monkeys being really aggressive with him, and they're just sitting there doing nothing. They kind of go, oh, stop it, monkey, stop it. But the other monkey is like yanking on its head and its hair. But then the ones where I was like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely abuse. Further down in the page, they were letting dogs like mess with them like they were squeaky toys. And at first the dogs are just kind of like pawing at the monkey, but then they grab it, or they're like grab it with their mouths and then fling it. And yeah, so, and then not only that, but I guess because I interacted in terms of going to their page and then reporting them and scrolling, I started getting way more accounts like that. Let me see if I saved another one. Oh yeah, this one. Can you see that clearly? Dang it. It says Mr. Dozy, D-O-Z-I 20, the number 20. And it's this, they're the same monkeys in the same location. You can clearly tell. So I don't know if there's a ring, like people in that house just trying to make the content just barely bad enough to where people would question if it's abuse or not. But I feel like the monkeys, like you see a few monkeys kind of shaking, and I feel like because of the other videos where they're like falling off of the high places, that they probably have like seizures or some brain complications after that. And so yeah, and the comments are disgusting. Like, yeah, there are people in there going like, what is this? Like, this is animal abuse, I'm gonna report you. But there are other people going like, oh, I would stomp at them on that monkey, or you know. So I feel like people get a kick out of that. So yeah, that was depressing. I should not have been doing that, but if you guys would help me out in reporting those pages, that would help. I feel like mass reporting would be way more beneficial than just maybe one person doing it. I don't know how they're still up, to be honest, because TikTok is not really, they're not really lenient with that sort of stuff. But on to the main stuff now. I bought from courtesy of Freed's Bakery, damn, it's upside down, a little Frankenstein cupcake for Miss Shelley, and I bought these really cool finger candles. I thought it was perfect for that, so I'm gonna light it up, sing happy birthday to Miss Shelley, and then I'm gonna munch on this cupcake because I'm kind of starving. Okay, it's lit. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Miss Mary Shelley. Happy birthday to you. Woo. You guys want to blow it out with me? Yay! Wow, and what a legacy this woman has had. Did the base fall off in the cupcake? Oh no! Whoa, that was freaky. Didn't even think about that. So that's why I said please get your snacks, because I don't want to be eating alone on the stream. I got myself a little Diet Coke. So while I grub on this and you grub on your snacks, I'm gonna read a little bit about Miss Shelley's life. She was quite the character. Okay, so on August 30th, 1797, in London, England, jolly old England, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin was born to Mary Wollstonecraft and William Goodwin. 10 days later, her father, a political philosopher and novelist, Dude, this whole thing just came off. What the heck? Oh, it's a ring. No way. Oh my god. Sweet. Okay, so 10 days later, her mother died, leaving her to be raised by her father, a political philosopher and novelist. She didn't receive formal education, but was surrounded by an intellectual community and was encouraged by her father to write. Which I feel like back then that was a big deal. Like, women weren't supposed to, or in terms of society, they didn't want women to be educated like that, I think. I could be wrong, I don't know. But 1797, maybe. In 1912, at age 14, Mary met poet and future husband Percy Bysshe? Shelley? It's Byssshe. Bysshe? There isn't an accent on the E, so I don't know. Wow. I need a napkin. I'm done. I don't want to get my equipment dirty. But don't look at my butt. Oh no. You did, didn't you? Oh, and I'm wearing my Universal Monster pajamas. It's got Dracula, the Bride. Wait, can you see? Yeah, a little bit, I guess. Bride. And the monster right there. Where is he? I had to tie these at the legs because they're a little long for my 5'8" frame. Okay. Let's continue. Oh, and he was 5 years older and an admirer of her father's writing. 2 years later, they began a courtship not approved of by Mary's father, and would meet at her mother's grave in the St. Pancras churchyard until they eloped in July 1814. And I think we all know what happened at the graveyard. That is kind of a well-known story. Kind of what made Miss Mary Shelley the OG goth. You know what? I don't think I should eat the frosting anyway. It just completely fell off. I got red velvet. It's one of my favorite flavors. Mmm. Yummy. Mary and Percy began a daily journal that she kept writing in through 1844, and that she anonymously published in 1817, called A History of a 6 Weeks Tour of France, Switzerland, and Germany. Ooh, I'd kind of like to read that. I feel like they were freaks in the best way. They initially returned to England in September of 1814, with Mary pregnant, but it was not their only visit to Europe. It was in June of 1816, during a trip to Geneva, Switzerland, when Mary conceived of Frankenstein and his monster from a waking dream during a ghostwriting contest with her husband and their friends. That's kind of well known, I think, that little part. When it was first published in 1818, critics believed it had been written by a man, some assuming it was Mr. Shelley instead. Initial public analysis of Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, was focused through the lens of then current politics. Now interpretations range from a mythical focus and suggestions by the mention of Prometheus to consideration of women's experiences of oppression, repression, and motherhood. Interesting. Shout out to Freeds. They did their thing with this. Mary Shelley had 4 children, but only the 4th child lived past infancy. No way, I didn't know that. Percy Shelley drowned in 1822, which left financial control to his father, Sir Timothy Shelley. Wow. Mary was required to return to England and restricted in publishing with the Shelley name. Despite the financial insecurity and control that lasted through 1844, Mary succeeded in financing her son's education and continued writing and publishing for herself and her late husband. During her final years, she continued in her travels before eventually dying of a brain tumor in London at age 53. Wow. That's young. In the 2 centuries since its first publishing, Frankenstein has remained Mary Shelley's best known work and has been reimagined in numerous adaptations across all story formats. The popularity of her story has given cause for her birthday to be renamed National Frankenstein Day. Oh, okay. I was thinking of doing that, but I wanted to honor her, not just the work that she did, you know? While Dr. Frankenstein and his creature may sometimes get confused in name as one and the same, there could never be another Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. True, true. An OG and the best to ever do it. One of my favorite creatures, monsters, books and movies. Especially the OG black and white Frankenstein. I think there was a, I don't know if it was proved, but I think there was a rumor that she kept her husband's heart. I can't remember if that was true. But let me finish this before I start getting into the book. That way I can focus on reading. Oh, whoa. I'm actually boring. So yeah, I don't know if to do away with Wednesday and do these story readings during the weekend or do them on Wednesdays. Because the weekends are a little more spontaneous in terms of plans and stuff, so I don't want to have to keep canceling story times, you know. I feel like this may be best for like Sundays. A little Sunday sermon. We'll keep it short, maybe an hour. Depending. I don't know if I can talk for full 2 hours straight. I don't even know if I can read that much. But this is my copy of Frankenstein. It is a really cool edition I picked up at Barnes & Noble. And it's just so beautiful. There are illustrations inside too. If I come across any, I will show them to you. And there is a preface and about the author, but not Shelley. It's about, I don't know, the one who reinterpreted this or something. So we're gonna skip that. We're just gonna go straight into the story. Oh, and I originally wanted to buy, I saw some cool Frankenstein shirts and Mary Shelley shirts on Amazon, but I know there's a boycott happening and I wanted to do my part boycotting Amazon because fuck Jeff Bezos. But I have my Frankenstein blanket that I got from Halloween Horror Nights one year. And it is beautiful. It's always resting on this chair, but to make it extra cozy, I'm gonna cover myself in it. Okay. It's not that comfortable. Okay, guess I won't lean back then. You know, I'm gonna take this cover off. Too much sensory overload. So, one illustration, I guess. Volume 1. And this story is written kind of like Dracula, where it's told through correspondence, like letters and such. So that's how they kind of start. So I just didn't want anyone to get confused. But letter 1 to Mrs. Seville, England. St. Petersburg, December 11th, 17... And it's dashed. I guess, I don't know. You will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure my dear sister of my welfare, and increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. I am already far north of London, and as I walk in the streets of Petersburg, I feel a cold northern breeze play upon my cheeks, which braces my nerves and fills me with delight. Do you understand this feeling? This breeze, which has traveled from the regions towards which I am advancing, gives me a foretaste of those icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. Wait. Hold on, I have Twitch pulled up, and I don't know if it's just the website that's glitching out, but it shows that like I'm not even on screen. Oh, I am on stream. Okay. Maybe I should just do it. Yeah, I'll do it on my phone. It's way more dependable that way. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as a region of beauty and delight. There, Margaret, the sun is forever visible, its broad disk just skirting the horizon and diffusing a perpetual splendor. There, for with your leave, my sister, I will put some trust in preceding navigators. Their snow and frost are banished, and sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a land surpassing in wonders and in beauty every region hitherto discovered on the habitable globe. Its productions and features may be without example, as the phenomena of the heavenly bodies undoubtedly are in those undiscovered solitudes, but may not be expected in the country of eternal light. I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle, and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations that require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities consistent for... Sorry, I'm hearing stuff behind me. I shall satiate my ardent curiosity with the sight of a part of the world never before visited, and may tread a land never before imprinted by the foot of man. These are my enticements, and they are sufficient to conquer all fear of danger or death, and to induce me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat with his holiday mates on an expedition of discovery up his native river. But supposing all these conjectures to be false, you cannot contest the inestimable benefit which I shall confer on all mankind to the last generation, by discovering a passage near the pole to those countries, to reach which at present so many months are requisite, or by ascertaining the secret of the magnet, which, if at all possible, can only be effected by an undertaking such as mine. Okay. So someone's on a little journey. A journey to discover something. These reflections have dispelled the agitation with which I begin my letter, and I feel my heart glow with an enthusiasm which elevates me to heaven. For nothing contributes so much to tranquilize the mind as a steady purpose, a point on which the soul may fix its intellectual eye. This expedition has been the favorite dream of my early years. I have read with ardor the accounts of the various voyages which have been made in the prospect of arriving at the North Pacific Ocean through the seas which surround the pole. You may remember that a history of all the voyages made for purposes of discovery composed the whole of our good Uncle Thomas's library. My education was neglected, yet I passionately fond of reading. These volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased that regret which I had felt as a child on learning that my father's dying injunction had forbidden my uncle to allow me to embark in a seafaring life. Oh, I just want to be a little sailor. These visions faded when I perused, for the first time, those poets whose effusions entranced my soul and lifted it to heaven. I also became a poet, and for 1 year lived in a paradise of my own creation. I imagined that I also might obtain a niche in the temple where the names of Homer and Shakespeare are consecrated. You are well acquainted with my failure, and how heavily I bore the disappointment. But just at that time I inherited the fortune of my cousin, and my thoughts were turned into the channel of their earlier bent. 6 years have passed since I resolved on my present undertaking. I can, even now, remember the hour from which I dedicated myself to this great enterprise. I commenced by injuring my body to hardship. I accompanied the whale fishers on several expeditions to the North Sea. I voluntarily endured cold, famine, thirst, and want of sleep. I often worked harder than the common sailors during the day, and devoted my nights to the study of mathematics, the theory of medicine, and those branches of physical science from which a naval adventurer might derive the greatest practical advantage. Twice I actually hired myself as an undermate in a Greenland whaler, and acquitted myself to admiration. I must own I felt a little proud when my captain offered me the second dignity in the vessel, and entreated me to remain with the greatest earnestness, so valuable did he consider my services. And now, dear Margaret, do I not deserve to accomplish some great purpose? My life might have been passed in ease and luxury, but I preferred glory to every enticement that wealth placed in my path. Oh, that some encouraging voice would answer in the affirmative. My courage and my resolution is firm, but my hopes fluctuate, and my spirits are often depressed. I am about to proceed on a long and difficult voyage, the emergencies of which will demand all my fortitude. I am required not only to raise the spirits of others, but sometimes to sustain my own when theirs are failing. This is the most favorable period for traveling in Russia. Ooh. They fly quickly over the snow in their sledges. The motion is pleasant, and in my opinion, far more agreeable than that of an English stagecoach. The cold is not excessive, if you are wrapped in furs, a dress which I have already adopted, for there is a great difference between walking the deck and remaining seated motionless for hours, when no exercise prevents the blood from actually freezing in your veins. I have no ambition to lose my life, on the post road between St. Petersburg and Archangel. I shall depart for the latter town in a fortnight or 3 weeks, and my intention is to hire a ship there, which can easily be done by paying the insurance for the owner, and to engage as many sailors as I think necessary among those who are accustomed to the whale fishing. I do not intend to sail until the month of June. And when shall I return? Ah, dear sister, how can I answer this question? If I succeed, many, many months, perhaps years, will pass before you and I may meet. If I fail, you will see me again soon, or never. Farewell, my dear, excellent Margaret. Heaven shower down blessings on you, and save me, that I may again and again testify my gratitude for all your love and kindness. Your affectionate brother, R. Walton. Oh, it's not Mr. Frankenstein. Letter 2 to Miss Saville, England. Archangel, March 28th, 17 dash. No year. Wonder why they did that with the year. How slowly the time passes here, encompassed as I am by frost and snow. Yet a second step is taken towards my enterprise. I have hired a vessel and am occupied in collecting my sailors. Those whom I have already engaged appear to be men on whom I can depend and are certainly possessed of dauntless courage. But I have one want which I have never yet been able to satisfy. In the absence of the object of which I now feel as a most severe evil, I have no friend, Margaret. When I am glowing with the enthusiasm of success, there will be none to participate my joy. If I am assailed by disappointment, no one will endeavor to sustain me in dejection. I shall commit my thoughts to paper, it is true, but that is a poor medium for the communication of feeling. I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. You may deem me romantic, my dear sister, but I bitterly feel the want of a friend. Friend, huh? I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as of a capacious mind, whose tastes are like my own, to approve or amend my plans. How would such a friend repair the faults of your poor brother? I am too ardent in execution, and too impatient of difficulties, but it is still greater evil to me that I am self-educated. For the first 14 years of my life, I ran wild on a common, and read nothing but our Uncle Thomas's books of voyages. At that age, I became acquainted with the celebrated poets of our own country, but it was only when it had ceased to be in my power to derive its most important benefits from such a conviction that I perceived the necessity of becoming acquainted with more languages than that of my native country. Now I am 28, and am in reality more illiterate than many schoolboys of 15. Wow. It is true that I have thought more, and that my daydreams are more extended and magnificent, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping, and I greatly need a friend who would have sense enough not to despise me as romantic, and affection enough for me to endeavor to regulate my mind. I want a man like that too. Shit. Well, these are useless complaints. I shall certainly find no friend on the wide ocean, not even here in Archangel, among merchants and seamen. Yet some feelings, unallied to the dross of human nature, beat even in these rugged bosoms. Hold on. My lieutenant, for instance, is a man of wonderful courage and enterprise. He is madly desirous of glory, or rather, to word my phrase more characteristically, of advancement in his profession. He is an Englishman, and in the midst of national and professional prejudices, unsoftened by cultivation, retains some of the noblest endowments of humanity. I first became acquainted with him on board a whale vessel. Finding that he was unemployed in this city, I easily engaged him to assist in my enterprise. The master is a person of an excellent disposition, and is remarkable in the ship for his gentleness and the mildness of his discipline. This circumstance, added to his well-known integrity and dauntless courage, made me very desirous to engage him. A youth passed in solitude, my best years spent under your gentle and feminine fosterage, has so refined the groundwork of my character that I cannot overcome an intense distaste to the usual brutality exercised on board ship. I have never believed it to be necessary, and when I heard of a mariner equally noted for his kindliness of heart, and the respect of a mariner and the respect and obedience paid to him by his crew, I felt myself peculiarly fortunate in being able to secure his services. Sorry, you're probably thinking, wow, this guy cannot read, but the lights are very low. So, and I did that on purpose to keep it cozy and dark. So I can still see, but sometimes it's hard. Where did I leave off? I heard of him first in rather a romantic manner, from a lady who owes to him the happiness of her life. This briefly is his story. Some years ago, he loved a young Russian lady of moderate fortune, and having amassed a considerable sum in prize money, the father of the girl consented to the match. He saw his mistress once before the destined ceremony, but she was bathed in tears, and, throwing herself at his feet, entreated him to spare her, confessing at the same time that she loved another, but that he was poor, and that her father would never consent to the union. My generous friend reassured the suppliant, and on being informed of the name of her lover, instantly abandoned his pursuit. He had already bought a farm with his money, on which he had designed to pass the remainder of his life, but he bestowed the whole on his rival, together with the remains of his prize money, to purchase stock, and then himself solicited the young woman's father to consent to her marriage with her lover. But the old man decidedly refused, thinking himself bound in honor to my friend, who, when he found the father inexorable, quitted his country, nor returned until he heard that his former mistress was married according to her inclinations. What a noble fellow, you will exclaim. He is so, but then he is wholly uneducated. He is as silent as a Turk, and a kind of ignorant carelessness attends him, which, while it renders his conduct the more astonishing, distracts from the interest and sympathy which otherwise he would command. So a himbo, basically, is what I'm getting, but a very sweet guy. Yet do not suppose, because I complain a little, or because I can conceive a consolation for my toils which I may never know, that I am wavering in my resolutions. Those are as fixed as fate, and my voyage is only now delayed until the weather shall permit my embarkation. The winter has been dreadfully severe, but the spring promises well, and it is considered as a remarkably early season, so that perhaps I may sail sooner than I expected. I shall do nothing rashly. You know me sufficiently to confide in my prudence and considerateness whenever the safety of others is committed to my care. I cannot describe to you my sensations on the near prospect of my undertaking. It is impossible to communicate to you a conception of the trembling sensation, half pleasurable and half fearful, with which I am preparing to depart. I am going to unexplored regions, to the land of mist and snow. But I shall kill no albatross, therefore do not be alarmed for my safety. Or if I should come back to you as worn and woeful as the ancient mariner? Oh, you will smile to my illusion, but I will disclose a secret. I have often attributed my attachment to, my passionate enthusiasm for, the dangerous mysteries of the ocean, to that production of the most imaginative of modern poets. There is something at work in my soul which I do not understand. I am practically industrious, painstaking, a workman to execute with perseverance and labor. But besides this, there is a love for the marvelous, a belief in the marvelous, intertwined in all my projects, which hurries me out of the common pathways of men, even to the wild sea and unvisited regions I am about to explore. But to return to dear considerations, shall I meet you again after having traversed immense seas and returned by the most southern cape of Africa or America? I dare not expect such success, yet I cannot bear to look on the reverse of the picture. Continue for the present to write to me by every opportunity. I may receive your letters on some occasion when I need them most to support my spirits. I love you very tenderly. Remember me with affection, should you never hear from me again. Damn. Your affectionate brother, Robert Walton. Does this happen to anybody else? When I read by myself, I mean, my ADHD makes it kind of hard to stay focused and to remember what I read. But reading out loud makes it even harder. So hopefully with time, I get used to that. Letter 3, again to Mrs. Seville, England, July 17th, 17 blank. My dear sister, I write a few lines in haste to say that I am safe and well advanced on my voyage. This letter will reach England by a merchantman now on its homeward voyage from Archangel. More fortunate than I, who may not see my native land, perhaps for many years. I am, however, in good spirits. My men are bold and apparently firm of purpose, nor do the floating sheets of ice that continually pass us, indicating the dangers of the region towards which we are advancing, appear to dismay them. We have already reached a very high latitude, but it is the height of summer, and although not so warm as in England, the southern gales, which blow us speedily towards these shores, which I so ardently desired to attain, breathe a degree of renovating warmth which I had not expected. No incidents have hitherto befallen us that would make a figure in a letter. 1 or 2 stiff gales, and the springing of a leak, are accidents which experienced navigators scarcely remember to record, and I shall be well content if nothing worse happens to us during our voyage. Adieu, my dear Margaret. Be assured that for my own sake, as well as yours, I will not rashly encounter danger. I will be cool, persevering, and prudent. But success shall crown my endeavors. Wherefore not? Thus far I have gone, tracing a secure way over the pathless seas, the very stars themselves being witnesses and testimonies of my triumph. Why not still proceed over the untamed yet obedient element? What can stop the determined heart and resolved will of man? My swelling heart is involuntarily... My God, I'm making up words now. Or I'm putting in words that aren't there. My swelling heart involuntarily pours itself out thus. But I must finish. Heaven bless my beloved sister. R.W. Finally, it wasn't like, if I die. Here's another illustration. Oh! Whoa, where'd it go? I don't know if you could see it well. Little ship on the sea with some ice. Letter 4 to Miss Seville, England, August 5th, 17. Beep. So strange an accident has happened to us that I cannot forbear recording it. Although it is very probable that you will see me before these papers can come into your possession. Last Monday, July 31st, we were nearly surrounded by ice, which closed in on the ship on all sides, scarcely leaving her the sea room in which she floated. Our situation was somewhat dangerous, especially as we were compassed round by a very thick fog. We accordingly lay to, hoping that some change would take place in the atmosphere and weather. About 2 o'clock, the mist cleared away, and we beheld, stretched out in every direction, vast and irregular plains of ice, which seemed to have no end. Some of my comrades groaned, and my own mind began to grow watchful with anxious thoughts, when a strange sight suddenly attracted our attention, and diverted our solicitude from our own situations. We perceived a low carriage, fixed on a sledge and drawn by dogs, pass on towards the north at the distance of half a mile. A being which had the shape of a man, but apparently of gigantic stature, sat in the sledge and guided the dogs. We watched the rapid progress of the traveler with our telescopes until he was lost among the distant inequalities of the ice. This appearance excited our unqualified wonder. We were, as we believed, many 100 miles from any land, but this apparition seemed to denote that it was not, in reality, so distant as we had supposed. Shut in, however, by ice. Oh, triggered. It was impossible to follow his track, which we had observed with the greatest attention. About 2 hours after this occurrence, we heard the ground sea, and before night the ice broke and freed our ship. We, however, lay to until the morning, fearing to encounter in the dark those large, loose masses which float about after the breaking up of the ice. I profited of this time to rest for a few hours. I don't think I've ever talked this much continuously. I feel like tomorrow my voice is going to be hoarse. So hopefully it'll be better by Monday. Which, did I start another game for Monday? Don't remember. Maybe that'll be our Roblox day. Yeah, worry about that another time. In the morning, however, as soon as it was light, I went upon deck and found all the sailors busy on one side of the vessel, apparently talking to someone in the sea. It was in fact a sledge, like that we had seen before, which had drifted towards us in the night on a large fragment of ice. Only one dog remained alive, but there was a human being within it, whom the sailors were persuading to enter the vessel. He was not as the other travelers seemed to be, a savage inhabitant of some undiscovered land, but in European. I promise it's A-N, European, which makes sense, right? But I've never heard it said like that. Sounds weird. When I appeared on deck, the master said, "Here is our captain, and he will not allow you to perish on the open sea." On perceiving me, the stranger addressed me in English, although with a foreign accent. "Before I come on board your vessel," said he, "will you have the kindness to inform me whither you are bound?" You may conceive my astonishment on hearing such a question addressed to me from a man on the brink of destruction, and to whom I should have supposed that my vessel would have been a resource which he would not have exchanged for the most precious wealth the earth can afford. I replied, however, that we were on a voyage of discovery towards the northern pole. Upon hearing this, he appeared satisfied, and consented to come on board. Good God! Margaret, if you had seen the man who thus capitulated for his safety, your surprise would have been boundless. His limbs were nearly frozen, and his body dreadfully emaciated by fatigue and suffering. I never saw a man in so wretched a condition. We attempted to carry him into the cabin, but as soon as he had quitted the fresh air, he fainted. We accordingly brought him back to the deck and restored him to animation by rubbing him with brandy and forcing him to swallow a small quantity. Give me some. As soon as he showed signs of life, we wrapped him up in blankets and placed him near the chimney of the kitchen stove. By slow degrees, he recovered and ate a little soup, which restored him wonderfully. Wow, I got lucky. 2 days passed in this manner, before he was able to speak, and I often feared that his suffering had deprived him of understanding. When he had in some measure recovered, I removed him to my own cabin and attended on him as much as my duty would permit. I never saw a more interesting creature. His eyes have generally an expression of wilderness and even madness, but there are moments when, if anyone performs an act of kindness towards him, or does him the most trifling service, his whole countenance is lighted up, as it were, with a beam of benevolence and sweetness that I never saw equaled. But he is generally melancholy and despairing, and sometimes he gnashes his teeth, as if impatient of the weight of woes that oppresses him. Wow, I really like that line. Sounds like me for real. When my guest was a little recovered, I had great trouble to keep off the men, who wished to ask him 1,000 questions, but I would not allow him to be tormented by their idle curiosity, in a state of body and mind whose restoration evidently depended upon entire repose. Once, however, the lieutenant asked why he had come so far upon the ice in so strange a vehicle. His countenance instantly assumed an aspect of the deepest gloom, and he replied, "To seek one who fled from me." "And did the man whom you pursued travel in the same fashion?" "Yes." "Then I fancy we have seen him, for the day before we picked you up, we saw some dogs drawing a sledge, with a man in it, across the ice." This aroused the stranger's attention, and he asked a multitude of questions concerning the route which the daemon, as he called him, had pursued. Soon after, when he was alone with me, he said, "I have, doubtless, excited your curiosity, as well as that of these good people, but you are too considerate to make inquiries. Certainly, it would indeed be very impertinent and inhuman in me to trouble you with any inquisitiveness of mine. And yet you rescued me from a strange and perilous situation. You have benevolently restored me to life." Soon after this, he inquired if I thought that the breaking up of the ice had destroyed the other sledge. I replied that I could not answer with any degree of certainty, for the ice had not broken until near midnight, and the traveler might have arrived at a place of safety before that time. But of this I could not judge. From this time, a new spirit of life animated in the decaying frame of the stranger. He manifested the greatest eagerness to be upon deck, to watch for the sledge which had before appeared. But I have persuaded him to remain in the cabin, for he is far too weak to sustain the rawness of the atmosphere. I have promised that someone should watch for him and give him instant notice if any new object should appear in sight. Such is my journal of what relates to the strange occurrence up to the present day. The stranger has gradually improved in health, but is very silent, and appears uneasy when anyone except myself enters the cabin. Yet his manners are so conciliating and gentle that the sailors are all interested in him, although they have had very little communication with him. For my own part, I begin to love him as a brother, and his constant and deep grief fills me with sympathy and compassion. He must have been a noble creature in his better days, being even now in wreck so attractive and amiable. Oh, it's like you got your wish. I said in one of my letters, my dear Margaret, that I should find no friend on the wide ocean. Yet I have found a man who, before his spirit had been broken by misery, I should have been happy to have possessed as the brother of my heart. I shall continue my journal concerning the stranger at intervals, should I have any fresh incidents to record. Okay. So what do we think? Platonic? Or is he crushing horde? I don't know how other men talked about other men back in the day, but it does seem a little, as he said, romantic. But he could be just very poetic with his words. Who knows? Maybe I'm just projecting. Okay, August 13th, 17... Oh. The dog is barking. Okay. My affection for my guest increases every day. He excites at once my admiration and my pity to an astonishing degree. How can I see so noble a creature destroyed by misery without feeling the most poignant grief? He is so gentle, yet so wise. His mind is so cultivated, and when he speaks, although his words are culled with the choicest art, yet they flow with rapidity and unparalleled eloquence. He is now much recovered from his illness, and is continually on the deck, apparently watching for the sledge that preceded his own. Yet, although unhappy, he is not so utterly occupied by his own misery, but that he interests himself deeply in the projects of others. He has frequently conversed with me on mine, which I have communicated to him without disguise. He entered attentively into all my arguments in favor of my eventual success, and into every minute detail of the measures I had taken to secure it. I was easily led by the sympathy which he evinced. Oh, new word. Never seen that word before. Evinced. To use the language of my heart, to give utterance to the burning ardor of my soul, and to say, with all the fervor that warmed me, how gladly I would sacrifice my fortune, my existence, my every hope, to the furtherance of my enterprise. One man's life or death were but a small price to pay for the acquirement of the knowledge which I sought, for the dominion I should acquire and transmit over the elemental foes of our race. As I spoke, a dark gloom spread over my listener's countenance. At first I perceived that he tried to suppress his emotion. He placed his hands before his eyes, and my voice quivered and failed me as I beheld tears trickle fast from between his fingers. A groan burst from his heaving breast. I paused. At length he spoke in broken accents. "Unhappy man, do you share my madness? Have you drunk also of the intoxicating draught? Hear me, let me reveal my tale, and you will dash the cup from your lips." Such words, you may imagine, strongly excited my curiosity. But the paroxysm of grief that had seized the stranger overcame his weakened powers, and many hours of repose and tranquil conversation were necessary to restore his composure. Having conquered the violence of his feelings, he appeared to despise himself for being the slave of passion and quelling the dark tyranny of despair. He led me again to converse concerning myself personally. He asked me the history of my earlier years. The tale was quickly told, but it was But it awakened various trains of reflection. I spoke of my desire to find a friend, of my thirst for a more intimate sympathy with a fellow mind than had ever fallen to my lot, and expressed my conviction that a man could boast of little happiness who did not enjoy this blessing. "I agree with you," replied the stranger. "We are unfashioned creatures, but half made up, if one wiser, better, dearer than ourselves. Such a friend ought to be. Do not lend his aid to perfectionate our weak and faulty natures. I once had a friend, the most noble of human creatures, and am entitled, therefore, to judge respecting friendship. You have hope in the world before you, and have no cause for despair. But I have lost everything, and cannot begin life anew." As he said this, his countenance became expressive of a calm, settled grief that touched me to the heart, but he was silent, and presently retired to his cabin. Even broken in spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature. The starry sky, the sea, and every sight afforded by these wonderful regions seems still to have the power of elevating his soul from the earth. Such a man has a double existence. He may suffer misery and be overwhelmed by disappointments, yet, when he has retired into himself, he will be like a celestial spirit that has a halo around him, within whose circle no grief or folly ventures. That's beautiful. Will you smile at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wanderer? You would not if you saw him. You have been tutored and refined by books and retirement from the world, and you are therefore somewhat fastidious. But this only renders you the more fit to appreciate the extraordinary merits of this wonderful man. Sometimes I have endeavored to discover what quality it is which he possesses, that elevates him so immeasurably above any other person I ever knew. I believe it to be an intuitive discernment, a quick but never failing power of judgment, a penetration into the causes of things, unequaled for clearness and precision. Add to this a facility of expression and a voice whose varied intonations are soul-subduing music. I have a feeling this is the creature, the monster that he's talking about. Because he said, will you smile at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wonder? You would not if you saw him. But who knows? At first I thought it was probably Dr. Frankenstein looking for the monster, because they said the other person was huge. But gonna end it there. So I'm gonna work on the schedule to figure out, because now I'm thinking, what if we get rid of Mondays and do Wednesday, Fridays, Sundays, and have Sundays be story Sundays, or sermon Sundays, we'll call them. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, thank you for letting me try something different today. I hope you had a good time, and I hope my voice was okay enough to make the story enjoyable. I definitely want to read it more. I like doing this a little bit. It helps me practice speaking a little better, work on my intonation, and not just read, but be engrossed in the story enough to project the emotions that are in the book or what is being said. But damn, my throat. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick to an hour for now, because I think I'm gonna lose my voice. Maybe I should chug some... What is the thing that soothes your throat when it's hoarse? I don't know. Maybe a cough drop? Or maybe I'll have some tea here. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining me today. Happy birthday, Mary Shelley, and thank you for such incredible stories that have since become part of my life. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I will try to update the schedule tomorrow, or I'll probably wait until the following week. That way it's not too sudden. But once again, thank you guys for everything. We're still so close to affiliate. The requirements are a little strange. It said I had to meet like criteria within a 30-day period, but I don't know if the other things like the streaming hours and the followers reset, so then I have to get another 25 followers within a 30-day period. But either way, I'm not in a rush. I'm trying to enjoy the slow build up to where I eventually want to be, and I appreciate anyone coming along the journey. So hopefully you enjoyed your snacks, hopefully this was a pleasant mood, and I will see you all on Monday. Bye.